Greetings! This is Griff Ruby, the Nostalgic Catholic, with yet another Isaac Asimov short story review. So, now we have another magazine where he first appears at this time called The Original Science Fiction Stories. The cover story, unfortunately, is not his, it's a different story, but at least his name and story are called out on the cover. Male Strikebreaker. So, naturally, you would find it again inside the table of contents. First one there, under Short Stories, Male Strikebreaker, Isaac Asimov, page 39. Okay. Now you get to page 39. You have a short blurb. You have one piece of one artwork, one drawing. And after that, you have the text of the story, as far as I can tell, virtually identical to the later printings, with one notable variation. When he wrote the story, he titled it just Strikebreaker. For some unknown reason, the editor of the original science fiction stories decided to call it Male Strikebreaker. Well, he wasn't female, but why? Just why? So much so that when he republished the story in his own collection, which in this case would be Nightfall and Other Stories, he simply restored it to its original title of Strikebreaker. Okay, be all that as it may, there is a blurb here which does not appear again. It says, the lives of the entire population of this little world, 30,000 people, lay in the hands of one man with a just grievance. And what were Raguznik's demands? Money? Power? Better working conditions? No. None of these. Raguznik's wants were amply provided for, all except one. The one he demanded. There is also a piece of art, and I think here, what we're looking at is a scene from the story. We have our main character here. He's talking by some kind of video phone to this very angry Raguznik in here. You can see how angry he is. You're gonna give me what I want? What are we talking for? Kind of an attitude. And there it says, Male Strikebreaker by Isaac Asimov, and it adds one tiny thing here, author of Living Space. So, presumably this magazine is published by the same umbrella publisher company as the one that put out Living Space. That's what I think. Okay, so we get into the story itself. We covered everything to make it different, and this is where it came out. So now everything else is simply the story itself. So let's look at that now. So he arrives. First of all, let's look at the setting. It's kind of a neat setting. He arrives to this planetoid. It's an asteroid. It's I don't know, a few miles, so many miles in diameter. And the amazing thing is, because it's so small and there's no natural gravity, or almost very, very little. So much that presumably there's some kind of artificial gravity that gets employed. Okay, whatever, wave a magic wand. Artificial gravity. I mean, we're not talking the kind you generate by just spinning something around. This is the inside of an asteroid. And it does bring out a rather fascinating point that if you could just populate an entire asteroid, let's say having a level every 50 feet, sort of like inside a building, but going all the way down in concentric spheres down to the middle, you could have as much ground surface area within such a thing as you would have an entire land surface of the planet Earth. In short, you could fit a lot of people in a surprisingly compact space and still have all room for all their farms and everything else, as long as you got the energy and the gravity somehow to kind of make, and lighting, whatever, make it all look normal. But space-wise, you could do that in terms of how much bulk. The surface of the planetoid would be about that of the state of New York, however. But we're not interested in the surface, but all the way throughout. They haven't exploited it all, but quite a bit, and here's our setting. They've got a civilization with a particularly snobbish view about wastes. Now, we regard waste as kind of an unglamorous aspect. I mean, probably some of the least glamorous jobs on the face of the earth are being the janitor, being the garbage collector. Yeah. Somebody who does that, somebody who's responsible for cleaning up messes or taking away the stuff of messes and figuring out some place to put them, or maybe find some way to reprocess them, recycle. But somehow that doesn't seem to get a whole lot of attention. Of course, now we live in a situation where suddenly they've got all this stuff that needs to be recycled, far more than they know how to recycle. So, great idea, but nobody's really poured into it what it takes to make it work, which could be a combination of what kind of materials we use such that they could be more easily recycled, as well as what processes can be employed to recycle them or put them into some other usable raw material form. So, at any rate, there's one guy who seems to be in charge of all that, and his name is Raguznik. But because he's in charge of that, he cannot have nobody wants to associate with him. So, to make up for that, they'll give whoever has this job, which seems to be kind of a family sort of a thing, how does he get a wife, by the way, is a question. And they figure, well, let's just say some lady dies in childbirth or something, and you have this orphan baby, and if it's a baby girl, then one of those might be selected randomly as a baby girl to grow up in the household of Raguznik, or whatever the name of the successor may be, his son, or and so forth. Like I said, it's kind of the father and son kind of a thing. And these kind of wives are the woman folk. So at least he does have a romantic connection. But usually there'd be other members of the family. There might be some brothers. Raguznik himself grew up with a brother. His son, however, has no brother, and I guess it's too late for there to be another. But rather than bring him a wife and let him another such wife wait for her to grow up and then have some more sons, all of which I think we all know is going to happen. He's just kind of down to himself and his son, and that's it. So that's pretty bad. Or maybe there's a baby girl growing up that'll be for his son, at most, and that's it. So nobody else will associate with him. Whatever wife he does have, or his ancestors have had on this planetoid, couldn't associate with other women. That's a hard thing to take away from them, from anybody really, though. But you could, and he wants that too. The thing he wants is respect. That's it. To be able to enter in among humanity as, and just be accepted. He doesn't. That's all he's asking for, but that's just too much. Because he's got this unglamorous job. So the Strikebreaker is somebody from the outside who's studying this world, making his investigations and general fact-finding, and wanting to help the rest of the galaxy know something about this interesting little world. Okay. Only somewhere along the line, he starts noticing that there's this house kind of in an odd place because living areas and industrial and agricultural are very neatly divided, and yet here in this one single production area, there's this one particularly grand and nice house. What's the story here? Well, this happens to be where Raguznik and whatever family he's got lives. And like I said, nobody else associates with him. He just does his job, and that's supposed to be enough. So when he does his job, that's fine. He's recycling all these wastes. And the interesting thing here it says too, and I'm kind of wondering about this, is that apparently his job isn't really even directly handling the waste. He's just operating machinery that handles the waste. So he'll push a button here and tweak a dial there, and just kind of do stuff like that so that waste will be recycled correctly. And oh, we're a little short on this thing. Well, we can divert more of the waste to being recycled this way or that way, or things like that. And well, now sooner or later, though, wouldn't somebody be responsible for maintenance? Something in the machinery breaks down. I mean, that's machinery. It does that, breaks down. And you have to go in, and there's parts you've got to take out, fix them, refurbish them, or maybe outright replace them and put them back in. And these parts do directly handle the waste. Who does that? So that would have to be there too, but somehow it's like, oh no, all I do is just push these buttons and this and that. So, which just made it more extreme. So somehow that little detail got overlooked. But he brings up a really good point, and that has to do with respect. I've seen this myself, that oftentimes the best thing what workers need in a company is not just, oh, give us more money or stock options or, things like that. Yeah, they should have those things. But there's something else that an employer can give to their employees that will do a great deal to earn their loyalty. And the great thing is, from an employer's standpoint, it doesn't cost anything. All you gotta do is have respect for your workers. That's it. Respect. I like to tell the story of Hector, whose job was picking apples. And he cared about what he was doing because he would pick the best apples. The lousy, rotten ones, he'd pull them off the tree and throw them on the ground. They make good fertilizer, but he's not going to put them in the, because these apples get mushed together to a very high quality drink. And he gets all the best, finest, and never underripe or whatever, all the truly best apples. And he'll put in extra time and effort to get all this just right and see that he was a supervisor or like a lead person, and he'd see that everybody else was doing the same thing, and they felt respected. They cared about what they were doing. Then one day they get a new supervisor, and this new supervisor just tells Hector, you take every apple off that tree, no matter what it looks like, and stick it in this bin, for our production. The wormy ones, the stinky ones, the overripe, the underripe, the what the hell ever, and now you got to throw them all in there. He's all, I object to this. Well, what you object to doesn't matter. I'm in charge, and I'm gonna do, and you're gonna do that. And he stands there until he sees Hector in all great disgust throwing all the different apples in the bin. And you know what happens? Hector was disrespected, and all the people working, that Hector led, were disrespected. Oh, they may stay on. They have to stay on. They have to earn a living. But they don't like it there anymore, and they don't give a crap about it. They have no more brand loyalty because all that just died right there. And everybody who asked them, well, I would never buy our own product, And if I find another job that pays even just closely as well, where I'd be respected, I'd jump to it immediately. So, I mean, respect has been lost. I've seen the same thing in a factory, and this is where I was actually working a very long time ago. It says that every time some worker made a mistake on a part, oops, the machine, it didn't get stuck in right, or whatever happened, a moment's neglect, or even just the machine munched the thing up. It's their fault, it's their screw up, and a great big board of all these screw up pieces with the name. Who screwed up? Why is this piece of metal wasted? It was a metalworking shop. Why, because so-and-so screwed up. This was the screw-up wall. And what it did was it slowed production way, way down, because suddenly, if every time I make the slightest mistake on something, it's going to go up on that screw-up wall, and my name's going to be attached to, oh, so-and-so screwed up by making a lousy part, you see, then that just meant that who's going to do much work? They're going to go very slowly, production goes way down, and you could actually hear the resentment in the workings of the machine or in the people hit it. They don't just push the, say the shear machine in and choke it off. You can just chunk, oh, you're gonna do this to me, chunk, all right, kind of attitude in all the things you could hear them doing. Respect was lost. Fortunately, I had the opportunity to be part of reversing that, seeing that thing get A, not be used anymore, and B, eventually even be taken down. And but you basically respect was regrew, and people were happier, morale significantly improved, and respect gradually returned, and respect from the people, respect of the people returned in that moment, and from them came back fairly swiftly as well. So that's an important thing. This is this is an important thing. A worker requires respect. They do something important. And if they're going to care about what they do, you need to respect that they care about what they're doing and allow them to do it right. And, that's what you got to do. And if they have something useful to suggest, you are listening. Not just there's a suggestion box that they can put things into, write something on a piece of paper, dump it in this box, and 10 years later it's still sitting in the box unread. You got to really, work with your workers and not just treat them as so many units to do this and that, or so many cattle to be this way and that way. And that's what made all the difference. So respect for one's workers is an important thing. In effect, what made it possible for my role in that was I had become a bit of a regliznik. I had an essential role, not waste management, but another one that required very specialized knowledge and training that not just anybody could do. I did it well, I did it carefully, and I was very integral to the functioning of that plant. Sometimes even, save their rear end on various projects and so forth. One case where there were the blueprints sent by the customer had an error. And I caught that, and we called back to the customer and said, oops, you're right. Good thing you discovered this, or the one things you would have made for our drawings would have been wrong. And, stuff like that really, I was somebody they needed. And I spoke to the guy, and the man who ran the shop, and I said, you can't have this thing. This destroys morale. You've got to take this thing down. It's only slowing production and destroying morale here and everything. And I don't know. I think he must have learned a lesson in that. He took the screw up rack down, stopped using it for a few more weeks or months. Finally, just took it down, took everything off of it, right away, and it just sat there unused until eventually got around to taking it away. And with all of that, he was showing respect. He didn't have to pay them anything more. He didn't have to give them any more benefits and, stock options or retirement benefits or anything. It's just simple respect, you see. So that's an important point. And for Raguznik, just wanted respect. That's all, just respect. Let him do his job. The benefits, he's not complaining about that. He'd settle for less benefits if only he could have gotten respect. If he could have lived among everybody else and been treated by everybody else. But everybody over there is, he handles waste. We don't want anything to do with him. We're too good for him. Really, there's a fascinating little point where, your job is to make the mess. My job is to clean them up. Who really should be looking down on who? Well, the guy investigating has to solve the situation, which he does, and basically by being the outsider who can do what nobody there can do. And then that breaks the strike, pretty much returns everything to the status quo before. So he didn't really solve very much of anything other than to get the guy doing his job again so that the waste don't accumulate on this little planetoid. But, in fact, that's kind of not a great solution. And for his not so great solution, other unexpected results follow. I will not spoil those things. So it's a good little story actually, and I recommend it. Thanks for watching.